It feels as if there's something on top of you or like something kind of
Yeah,
pressing you. Is that what it was?
yeah,
What you felt?
yeah. It feels like you're suffocating. So it feels like you lose. It's almost like you're paralyzed. Like you can't get up, even though you're like internally, you're like wanting to get up and run or even scream or talk. It's
Yeah.
almost like as if someone's like choking you. So it that's
Guys, welcome to Knockeye Interviews. Today we have Natalie Rodriquez, and she's going to share with us some cool, scary experiences that inspired her to do and write a novella, a book, or a short story called Inner Child. Anyways, Natalie, tell us a little bit about this book and tell us about your experiences that inspired Inner Child.
yeah. Hi, Joey. Thanks for having me back.
And thanks for
Yeah,
being
I know
on.
we were talking about. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, first of all, I'm a fan of like scary movies. Some of my favorite YouTube channels. I was just telling you about one of them was like Nuke's Top Five, like ghost stories, paranormal videos, or fake. But when you live it in real life, I think it's not so fun.
Yeah.
It's a few years ago, I used to get really, really terrible night terrors. So I call it sleep paralysis, or you can call them sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis, I always say, are like night terrors. It's when you wake up, okay, that was a bad dream I had. But I feel with night terrors, it's that state of not knowing what's real or what's fake. Kind of almost as if like seeing a ghost or seeing like a paranormal video. It's almost like you're questioning that in your real life. So a few years ago, I want to say maybe back in like 2012, 2013, I was living with my mom and my stepdad at the time at their house in Glendora. And I remember waking up what I thought to what was a black apparition that was pushing me against my bed.
Mm.
And what was weird is it's during the daytime. So I didn't know I was really fully awake until I actually sat up and turned off my TV because I'd fallen asleep while watching a movie. And I remember looking around, I was like, was someone just in my room or was I didn't think about, I was just
And
dreaming at
this
the
was
time.
during
I
the
was honestly
day.
like, was someone in my room? Yeah,
This is
it
like
was during the
daytime,
daytime because yeah,
like
it was maybe like
afternoon.
2, 3 o'clock because
Oh
I
wow.
remember I was waiting to go to work and it was like my day off from school or something when I was in college. So, and I remember my stepdad was home. So I got up and I went to go see where he's at. And he was like outside, like working on the car. And I remember asking, like, was someone like here? And he's like, no, why? I'm like, oh, okay. Like maybe I just had like a night terror. And he's like, are you okay? You look really pale. And I was so like worked up. So I didn't think much about it. And what was weird is because the same like night terror would come back like every few months. I feel just like random. I mean, it wasn't really anything like I could go to bed having the best day ever and I can just wake up hours later having that same physical, symptom of not being able to move my
Now,
body, not being
I,
able
I
to
heard
speak.
I heard what it is. Well, on Google it says that it feels as if there's something on top of you or like something kind of
Yeah,
pressing you. Is that what it was?
yeah,
What you felt?
yeah. It feels like you're suffocating. So it feels like you lose, it's almost like you're paralyzed. Like you can't get up, even though you're like internally, you're like wanting to get up and run or even scream or talk. It's
Yeah.
almost like as if someone's like choking you. So that's what it feels like. That's what it felt like the first time. It felt like I was like being pushed into the bed.
Yeah.
And then usually with a lot of sleep paralysis, because years later I looked it up, a lot of people have said they also see like a silhouette or a black apparition that's on top of them, or they'll sometimes see them like a black apparition at the foot of the bed. For me, it was always either like at the foot of my bed or actually like on top of me. And
Yeah.
usually like I would wake up and it's like a horrible feeling. It almost feels like you're paralyzed and you're helpless. You can't do anything. You can't scream. You can't, fight off anything.
Yeah.
And I think sleep paralysis too, years later, I didn't know if that's what it was until I also Googled what it was. Like, what is it when you fall asleep, you can't wake up or you can't physically move or even talk. And I think sleep paralysis, people don't know. Studies show that it's not really linked to a history of trauma. It's not really linked to, you won't go to bed watching a scary movie. Sometimes they said studies show doctors see a lot of these night terror sleep paralysis happen to just random people just on a random basis. So that's
And
a little terrifying because
yeah,
there's no, I think, cure, or there's no like way of knowing like what actually triggers this.
yeah. And was there like a dream, like some type of story in the like a dream that you would have, like you would see a narrative play? You know what I mean?
It was yeah, seeing the silhouette. It
That's it.
was literally, it feels like it was just like this tall black shadow. That's what it was. It kind of, I'm thinking I think there's a movie that shows like it actually just looked like a demon. And that's what inspired Inner Child later, like years later, because
Yeah.
I was like one day just wanting to write a short story, and that short story ended up turning from like 5 pages to like 23 pages, 24 pages.
And
And
that's
that story
yeah.
honestly was born because that black silhouette scared me. Yeah.
Wow. And then you said it followed you into the next location where you were at or slept, right? The
Yes.
next house. Did it?
So, thinking. Yeah. So the last house I lived in, yeah, I was living with my mom in Glendora for like 2 years. We lived in a condo. Like I didn't have any like nightmares or night terrors that I could think of that were like so horrifying until like November 2018. I had the same night terror happen where I remember I was watching TV. I don't remember dozing off or falling asleep. It was like the middle of the night, like 2, 3 in the morning. And I remember all of a sudden I felt that like suffocation feeling again. And when I tried to get up and move, I couldn't. And I remember what was weird is looking at the door because I'd always left my door ajar. So, and the thing is that was scary about this condo a little bit was my bedroom was facing the hall. So when I would have the door ajar, it was just pitch black. So I've always been superstitious about that because I was the closest to
Someone
the
might
front
be peeking.
door. Oh no, it did feel like that. It's like the peeping Tom. But that's what happened. I remember just like I thought I was like awake, and I remember all of a sudden I just couldn't move. I was looking at the hallway, and what was weird because I remember I couldn't close my eyes, and I was just staring at the ajar bedroom door. And I remember I was like I had this like fear that like something was about to like crawl into my room.
Yeah.
And before that happened, my mom shook me awake, and I thought I was still dreaming until she's like, "Hey, I heard you like moaning and mumbling." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I think I just had a nightmare." She's like, "Oh," she's like, "I heard you yelling, mom, but like you're mumbling it. It's almost like you're trying to yell." And what was scary was in my night terror, I was also trying to yell out for her before that apparition was going to come back into my room. And it
Yeah.
was so weird. I remember telling her that, and she's like, "Oh, just go back to bed." And I was like, "No," I'm like, "Mom, I've had this like weird night terror happen for like 2, 3 years, like just on and off randomly." And I think that's the last time I had it. So it was like back in November 2018. I haven't experienced anything like that yet, but I don't want to get my hopes up.
Now, question:
But
when you finished the book or the
mhm.
story, um, did they stop happening? Was it? Do you think that's what it was, or you finished it before or after?
That's a good question. Because once it got published online, it was a friend's colleague I worked for called Dime Show Review. They actually featured it. And it was weird because I had never thought about that. I think once it got published online, it was almost like maybe that is a thing. It was almost like a weird, like once it's out in the public, it's almost like maybe that, sleep paralysis can't disturb you like it used to. I mean,
That's
I've
kind of
had
cool.
scary dreams. No, but I think
Yeah.
about that because I the thing was published back in 2018. Ooh, I think like in June. So a few months before that last night terror I had. And then it got featured on a podcast a few months ago in like 2019.
Yeah.
And I don't recall having like any night terror since or seeing that, silhouette, that demon like creature. If anything, yeah, I mean, I haven't really had any bad dreams. If anything, they just seem like regular dreams like a lot of people have on a every few day basis.
Yeah. No, but that's insane. That is scary. I've had a few experiences like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you really do feel like there's something in your room. Like you really
Yeah,
feel it's so weird. And even when you
yeah.
wake up, and let's say it's like midnight or something, or late at night, and you wake up, you feel like even while you're awake, you're like, okay, I could still feel this scary presence in the room, you know?
Yeah.
But
Oh, it's terrifying. And I think I mean, I know a lot of people have experienced it. What was scary was back then I had no idea that was a thing, like sleep paralysis or night terrors, or kind of having those experience. And then for some reason, I was terrified the first time I had it, like a few years ago. I thought it was like, for some reason, like, I mean, that's why I was a firm believer, like the house was haunted in Glendora, or the condo was haunted.
Yeah.
And then a part of me was be afraid to be home alone because of that, just because that's why I was sleeping like with lights on in my room, because I was just terrified to sleep in the dark. And then for a little bit as well, I kind of, used to think it was my cat. I've had a cat for about 8 years. So sometimes if I would wake up, he'd be on my bed. So I used to think, oh, maybe it's the cat. Maybe the cat sat on my chest or sat on me or was close to
Wow.
my face. Maybe that's why I was suffocating. But I don't know though, because I mean, I've been researching myself, and I think it is a thing. I think it's just sometimes it can be a way of maybe ancestors trying to communicate with you, or sometimes it can be your internal fears coming out in physical, a physical reality to kind of tell you, consciously, hey, there's some stuff you have to deal with. I mean, and there's so many theories behind why people have them. And I think what's scary is just as the horrifying just to not be able to move, or I think be able to talk. In all my experience, I haven't been able to talk or move, and
So
it's
in
almost
the
like you're just
story,
paralyzed, and you can't tell if it's like you're actually like legit paralyzed.
yeah.
And
So in the story, Inner Child, does the character discover how to overcome this, or what happens? If you want to tell us.
she does. Yes, of course. It's one of my darker stories. So it's like new adults, I would say, for college students and above. It's
Yeah.
about a college student named Cassie. She's been having these reoccurring night terrors. And in
Hmm.
this night terror, she also sees this black apparition. She sees this like demon-like creature that's always suffocating her, or that's at the foot of her bed in her room. And it has actually triggered a lot of like anxiety for her, a lot of fear, a lot of worries. She's a firm believer like these night terrors keep happening because it's a sign. And it's through revisiting these night terrors, she's actually forcing herself to go to sleep so she can figure out, who is this demon in my dream? Is it someone from my past? Is it a known person? Is it a serial killer? Is it just paranormal? Is it just me losing my mind? So she finds out through actually revisiting her sleep paralysis, and she finds out who this person is and actually like her dream and why she keeps having them. So her sleep paralysis is actually linked to some upsetting past events that she experienced throughout her childhood, throughout her teenage years, and she must learn how to either deal with it, or not deal with it at all by either trying not to fall asleep, as we see in like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies or
Or
in
else they
stories.
die
It's
in their
yeah,
in their dream.
yeah, or they die in the dream, or if they don't deal with it, it's easier to not find an answer that can be your worst fear. So that's what the novella is about. And when I wrote that, I think I honestly didn't realize how dark it was until about a year after it got published on Amazon. I think I realized this is pretty dark, and a lot of that was because my worries about like what is sleep paralysis, and I think kind of like Cassie, the main character in the story, it was
Yeah.
sort of figuring out like theories behind it, or is this related to someone's past, or is this related to just a random everyday basis?
That is great.
Yeah.
Guys, is there a link to that? Can we find that book
Yes, there is
somewhere?
a link.
Is it on
Yes, there's
Amazon?
a link, and it's on Amazon, and it's also on Spotify, and I think Apple Podcasts, because I had a dear friend of mine, Shelby, she actually did an audiobook version of it, which was horrifying because Shelby's a
So
great
there,
voice
people can
actor,
listen
and
to
she
it.
just scared me. Yeah,
Really? Okay, guys,
yeah.
go and check it out. Inner Child. And if you have ever had a scary experience, please comment in the section below. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing with
Thank you.
us.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Well, hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me.